Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Discovery Education, where experts within their field help our dysautonomia community learn to thrive. I'm Leslie, the Education and Awareness Coordinator, and I'm so glad that you're here. I invite you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our channel to get notifications of upcoming videos and content so that you can learn how to live your best life with dysautonomia. Also, be sure to share our videos with your family and friends. Tonight, I'm joined by Blythe Neer, a multi-certified dog trainer specializing in service dogs and scent detection. Blythe will help us discover everything we need to know about service dogs for those with dysautonomia. Blythe is a dysautonomia and chronic illness warrior who got her start in dog training as a result of her medical conditions. She has worked with over 100 service dog handlers to help train their own dogs worldwide, and is the first to create a fully self-paced scent training program for a variety of needs and disabilities. She has 2 dogs of her own, including her own service dog, and lives in northern Colorado. Her favorite clients are dedicated to their dog's well-being above all and excited to learn the whys of dog training. We are blessed to learn from you tonight, so thank you for joining us, Blythe.
Hello and welcome to Dysautonomia and Service Dogs. Today we're going to be learning all about how service dogs can help those of us with dysautonomia. So first, a little bit about me. I am a scent detection professional. I'm a multi-certified dog trainer and I specialize in service dogs. I also have dysautonomia as well as EDS and co, so I completely understand the struggles that we all go through on a daily basis. The business that I own is called Delta Tails, and I am the head trainer as well as the owner there. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about what dogs can do for dysautonomia, whether or not they can alert to episodes, some questions to ask yourself if you're thinking about pursuing a service dog, how to obtain a service dog for dysautonomia, and what does training look like. So first, how can dogs help with dysautonomia? The first thing that they can do is help prevent symptoms. So these are things that they would do before you even have symptoms in order to avoid them altogether. So the most frequently used one in my program and also by myself with my own dog is retrieving dropped items and retrieving items from bottom shelves. So if you're shopping and you drop your keys, your dog can pick that up to avoid symptoms from bending over. And same with shopping, you can teach them to target items on the bottom shelves and place them into your cart for you. Some other things that I have taught dogs to do in the past for clients with dysautonomia are finding a chair or bench so that they can sit down, alerting to changes in their behavior. So sometimes we have behavior changes before our symptoms get really bad, and our dogs are really, really good at picking up on that. Retrieving medication based on an alarm or a cue. This is really helpful for people who forget to take their medication and then have extra symptoms. Retrieving water. I know I'm terrible about drinking water, so retrieving it is really helpful at times, especially during flares. Tugging doors open or closed if that causes symptoms for you. Big one for me is removing compression socks and other clothing items that are difficult for me to bend over and remove that make my symptoms increase. So we can train dogs to do that. We can help them learn how to close stoves, dishwashers, and other appliances that you have to bend over to close. And they can also retrieve a rollator, cane, rolling chair, any sort of mobility aid for you if you are stuck in a position and you can't get up to grab your mobility aid. So with that, we're going to go into some video examples of some of these tasks.
Go pull. Yes, good girl. Okay, go push. Yes, good girl.
Pick that up.
Give my sack. Oh, can you get it? Thank you. Now we're going to talk about some tasks that our dogs can do to manage symptoms once they've already started. So a lot of these are going to be very similar, but there are some that fit in different categories. So finding a chair or bench when you're symptomatic is really helpful. You can even have your dog guide you to those so that you don't even have to worry about brain fog and trying to process where you're going. You can just follow your dog. Another thing that they can do is alert your partner, parent, or use an alert button when an episode occurs. So this is usually used by folks who completely pass out, and they can even use a little button on their collar or in a specific room so that you can call somebody if you do end up passing out. They can also retrieve medication and water on cue. So if you have some emergency medication or electrolyte drinks and that sort of thing, they can call emergency or trusted people with a cued button push. So, again, with the fainting or falling, we can teach a dog to go and hit a button that will call either emergency services or one of your support people with a cued button push. They can also provide deep pressure, they can lick and provide other types of stimulation if you do end up fainting, which is really helpful for most people to get them out of those episodes. Some dogs can actually alert before the fainting occurs, and we're going to talk about this a lot more later. They can also retrieve a rollator, cane, or mobility device if you've fallen over. They can bark to alert upon fainting in public. So, this one is really helpful if you don't have a support person, and usually people store emergency information in the dog's vest in order to help the public understand what they are supposed to do. Dogs with the correct weight and structure can also help to elevate your legs while you're laying down to prevent fainting in the first place. And a lot of folks really enjoy deep pressure therapy across their legs in order to help bring the heart rate down and stress levels down as well.
Go get my meds. Thank you. Hello. Go find Daddy. Pressure.
So these are some related tasks that might not be specific to dysautonomia, but are tasks that I see a lot being used for folks with dysautonomia or used by myself. One of those is finding an exit. So for me, I am very, very anxious about having an episode in public. So I prefer my dog to find an exit versus a chair or a bench. So some people will choose that instead. You can have your dog find specific people by name. So if you're really struggling with brain fog and you lost your support person in the store, you can have your dog help you find them. They can carry small items. I don't use this too much, but sometimes it's helpful if you've dropped something. They can push handicap buttons. So if you're using a chair or a mobility aid of some sort and really struggle to get that door open, they can push the buttons for you. They can alert to specific sounds if you're struggling with brain fog. So I struggle to hear things sometimes and process them when I'm very symptomatic. So alerting to my name and things like that can be really helpful. They can also retrieve a chair to specific rooms. So, for example, if you're cooking and you're feeling some symptoms, you can have your dog bring the chair to the kitchen for you. Something that I've used a lot is assisting with laundry and moving clothes between the rooms. That was something that I really struggled with when I was not doing as well with my dysautonomia and controlling it. And having a dog to help with the laundry so that I could be helpful to my partner was very awesome. And again, they can retrieve braces, crutches, blankets, really whatever you can think of. They can retrieve for the most part, and that can be really helpful to minimize symptoms.
Hold. Come. Heel. Yes. Can you hand it to me? Oh, thank you. Good girl.
The next thing we're going to talk about is whether dogs can alert to our episodes before they happen or not. So If you're thinking of behavior and motor cues, many dysautonomia patients display these cues during periods of high symptoms or a bit before. So these can be things like tremors, shifting weight, shaky voice. For me, I kind of sway back and forth. These motor changes are very easily trained as an alert response. So if you do have a motor change before you have symptoms or before you pass out, these can easily be trained as an alert behavior as long as you can kind of replicate those behaviors and you know which behaviors you display. This type of alert is really good for those who don't pass out completely but do need help knowing when they're symptomatic due to the brain fog or disorientation or confusion. This one is much more easily trained and it takes a lot less time. So if this is something that would be useful to you, I always recommend going this route first. Now we're going to talk about scent training. So for me personally, I have worked with several clients to successfully shape a natural alert as well as train an alert via scent. These are typically the clients who pass out quickly and with little warning. These are the ones that really benefit from scent training specifically because there's not so much that the dog can pick up on, or it's too fast for them to pick up on it. We have found the most success with training alerts with sweat samples, and we have successfully worked through blind training from the beginning. So that is a huge part of our program to make sure that our dogs are not responding to the body cues and instead are responding to the scent. This can take anywhere from 1 to 2 years. So this is why I always recommend going the motor alert route if possible. It's just quicker and more cost effective for most handlers, but scent training can be really beneficial for some teams. Most clients have seen live alerts within the 9 to 12 month mark, and most complete the training within 18 months at least. However, working with a professional scent detection trainer is really, really important here. There are a lot of misinformed YouTube handlers who provide some very inaccurate and unscientific information on scent training your dog. Working with a professional really is important, especially when you're talking about the difference between passing out and hitting your head or avoiding symptoms altogether. This is not something that you want to skimp on. So, what does the science say? This is where we get a lot of conflict in the service dog community because currently there are no studies to support that scent training for cortisol, heart rate, fainting, migraines, and other conditions is possible. Only recently was a study published about seizure detection, even though they've been trained for quite a long time. However, without a large sample of dogs trained for these things, so for things like dysautonomia, heart rate, fainting, etc., no science is ever going to support the theory. So my goal is to help my clients as best and scientifically as I can, let them know of the risks and lack of scientific support currently so that they're aware of it and know that it is fairly experimental at this stage, and have enough successful detection dogs to work with researchers to change this in the next few years. I think it would be awesome to show scientifically and be able to replicate the things that I have experienced, but obviously we need a bigger sample of dogs to do that. So now we're going to talk about you personally and how to get service dogs for yourself. So there are a lot of things that you need to keep in mind as you're thinking about possibly pursuing a service dog. So the first thing is the ADA guidelines. Now, this is for the United States. If you're in a different country, there are different laws for you, and I recommend researching and reaching out to government officials in your area who may be able to help you. So in the United States, the ADA requires two things to qualify a dog as a service dog. The handler of the dog must be disabled in one or more areas of their daily activities. The dog has to also be trained to perform tasks to mitigate the disability. So this means that a diagnosis does not qualify you for a service dog. You have to actually be disabled, which each handler kind of has to decide for themselves. So now we're going to talk about physician support and cooperation. In the United States, It's not necessary to have a doctor's note in order to have a service dog. However, in order to bring your service dog into things like housing and college and things like that, you may be required to present a doctor's note as proof of disability. The most successful handlers have the support and cooperation of their physicians, their therapists, and care teams. However, I understand that this is a privilege that's not available for everyone, so that's why the ADA guidelines exist and allow service dogs without requiring physician prescription. So here are some things to consider that are a bit more personal, not illegal. Social anxiety is a big one. If you struggle with social anxiety and having attention drawn to you, a dog can really exacerbate that, and I've experienced that myself. Um, the impact of training is something you should consider. If you are really not doing well physically, it's going to be difficult to train your dog at the same time. So, owner training is kind of a privilege for those of us who are well enough to train a dog, but maybe not well enough to work, for example. However, it is something you should keep in mind as you're considering the different options available to you. You also have to think about the extra time to get ready to leave the house. This one is pretty annoying for me. You have to think about the extra gear you're going to need to carry and the extra steps for potty breaks and things like that. You also have to think about the time caring for your dog as a dog. So they need 3 hours of exercise per week. They need quite a lot of sleep. They need mental enrichment. They need vet care. There's a lot of extra things that goes into owning a service dog and taking care of them correctly. You also have to think about finances for both maintenance and emergencies. You need to think about whether you need to hire a trainer, vet bills, emergency vet bills, insurance, and those sorts of things. Unfortunately, service dogs are expensive and they are a privilege that not all of us can afford. The last one is something that I actually see a lot. If you think that a service dog would help you, but you don't like dogs normally, you don't like your friends' dogs, or maybe they overwhelm you, a service dog is not going to be a good fit no matter how helpful they are. They are still dogs and they are still going to have dog traits. So I definitely recommend making sure that you love dogs and want to share your life and your home with one, because service dogs are not always on duty and they are goofballs just like every other dog. So you've decided that a service dog is right for you. How do you get one? First, we're going to talk about program dogs, which can either be paid or free placement. Usually, I see them placed for free because most programs are nonprofits. So, some nonprofits will place the service dogs for free. However, these programs do have long wait lists, usually a few years. They provide limited tasks, usually. Some of them only provide guide dogs for the blind. Some of them only provide mobility support dogs, things like that. So you don't always get to customize the dog completely. And most programs don't train for scent based tasks. They usually will put limit on the gear that you can wear. So sometimes you have to put your dog in a program vest, which some handlers don't like, but some handlers really do because it looks more official. They can also limit the future training. So if you want to train a separate task, some of them will actually put that in the contract so that you're not able to hire a trainer to train other tasks for their dog. For these, the training is complete without the handler, and the handler is only required to pay for travel and housing. These are usually incredible dogs, and they come with lifetime support of the program. They're usually ethically and humane training wise, which is super awesome and a risk that you take in other routes. They usually also have a long history of success and lots of reviews and testimonials, which is very nice and reassuring to have when you're trusting your life with an animal. One of my favorites, and the one that I see recommended the most, is Canine Companions for Independence. They have all of these things as part of their program. However, they only train mobility specific tasks. So you won't get, for example, fainting alerts and things like that you wouldn't get from a dog from Canine Companions. The next option is a paid placement. So there are some businesses and nonprofits who offer service dogs to purchase. They also have pretty long wait lists, but if the wait list is short, it usually is a red flag. Not always, but for me, if the wait list is short, it's usually a bit of a red flag. They typically customize the tasks to the handler specifically, which can be really beneficial to those who need scent-based tasks or more non-generic tasks. There are usually some limits to the gear and future training, but each program is going to be different. Sometimes the training is completed with the handler, sometimes it's completed without, and the handler is usually required to fund the entire process, which is between 15 to I've seen upwards of $35,000. This can be quite a lot riskier because our industry is actually very unregulated. So anybody can call themselves a dog trainer. Anybody can call themselves a service dog trainer. There is no regulation in the United States for either of those things. There's no regulation to sell a dog as a service dog, and there are no exams that a dog can take from a non-biased place that verifies that these dogs have learned all of these things. So these can be a really risky option, but there are some very good programs out there. They're not as easy to find ethical and humane training styles. Unfortunately, a lot of these programs like to turn out the dogs very quickly in order to make a profit. And unfortunately, that comes with some quick fix training solutions that aren't as humane as they could be. I usually don't recommend this except for a select few programs, which I'm happy to direct you towards if this is something you're looking for. However, it's very risky, so I try to avoid recommending it except for some very specific circumstances. So now we're going to talk about owner training. This is what I help people do. I have seen this the most commonly chosen because of the short wait list. You're really only waiting for your puppy to be born. This type of training allows the handler to learn alongside the dog. Unfortunately, due to this, there is a high washout rate, and this is mostly because of the lack of education for the general public in selecting a dog as well as training a dog. There's also a pretty large risk of rehoming or needing to get a second dog. I have had clients who have had upwards of 4 to 5 dogs that they've chosen not work out for service work. However, the tasks can be customized to the handler because you're doing the training yourself, and you can decide which training company you want to go with. You can choose which methods you align with most, and you can also use as much gear or whatever kinds of creative things you want to do with that. However, it requires a lot of time, energy, and emotional support. I won't lie, owner training is very difficult. I always recommend that my clients work with a therapist because of how many different things can go wrong during the process. You can select the trainer that you align with best and feel most comfortable with. However, I do recommend looking for some general certifications, things like a CPDT-KA or an IAABC. Any of those certifications will be at least a little bit helpful in the right direction for humane and ethical training. With owner training, scent-based tasks are more readily trained because you have no limits and you can work with professionals who maybe don't have ties to a program. The best results for owner training are from a trusted, well-bred puppy and trainer support from day one. So what I personally like to do with my clients is choose the breeder for them based on their needs, wait for the puppies to be born of a litter that would best fit their needs, temperament test that litter and choose which puppy I think would do the best, and work with them from day one to train their puppy from 8 weeks all the way up to 2 years. This is usually the most successful. However, there is still a chance of washout just due to natural genetics and variations in puppy personalities. So if you're going to go the owner training route, what does training look like? So all service dogs are going to go through this kind of phase. Usually 8 weeks to 24 weeks is very heavy socialization. There's lots of time spent going on field trips, vet visits, and more. They learn the basics of training, so things like luring, markers, settling, and focus. You work a lot on potty training, separation training, and crate training for emergencies and management. And this is the most important stage and most beneficial for the dog's future. So if a person is wanting to own or train, I recommend at least having professional support for that socialization period so that you set your dog up for success in the future. So then from 6 months to a year old, you work on basics. You can work on sits, downs, heels, pet manners in all environments with distractions, as well as cooperative care for grooming and handling. Then, after about a year, some dogs are going to go at a different pace, but after about a year to 2 years is when you work on public access and tasks. This is the stage that you see on social media the most, but it's actually only a small part of all of the training that goes into service dogs. This is public manners specific to non-pet friendly areas and learning to stay out of the way and be unobtrusive to the public during a lot of field trips for training. This is also when they perfect tasks specific to the individual. So now we're going to talk a bit about scent dogs, so allergen or medical alert. The first 8 to 24 weeks, we definitely still do heavy socialization, and we do add in some beginning scent games using food and no specific scent. So this is just teaching them how to search and work independently with fun enrichment games so that we can focus on socializing them and building that drive. So then from 6 months to a year old, we work on scent basics, which is things like building that independent search drive with food, imprinting the scent, so whether that's sweat samples or an allergen, and beginning discrimination searches so that they learn which odor they are looking for, even when there are other odors present. Then from 1 to 2, we really work on perfecting the task. This is the stage that takes the longest. So for medical alert, this is going to be a ton of real life simulations, so hiding the sample on your body. They're all conducted blind so that neither the handler nor the dog knows whether the sample is hot or not. And this is to make sure that the dog is accurately using scent versus body cues or something like that. For allergen detection, this is where we start simulations like full bowls, plates, cups, packages, and those sorts of things. Those are also all conducted blind from the beginning. So then we complete our final testing and move on to the maintenance phase. So that is an overview of how service dogs can help with dysautonomia. I am so thankful that you let me talk to you about this today, and I'm very excited to hear any questions from you or if you want to start the process of finding a service dog for you. My email is down below. Feel free to email me with any questions or comments that you have. I'd love to hear from you. And I just want to say thank you again for watching, and I hope this was very helpful to you.